All right, so we're here with another episode of Court Matters. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And first of all, let's say Happy New Year. I think we haven't had an episode air since 2025. Wendy, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, Sandra. It's nice to be back after a nice little break from the news headlines. Obviously, you're always in it, so the news headlines, that is.
Yeah,
And that's what I believe we're going to talk about this evening. It's you in the news.
Yes, I'm in the hot seat. I'm in the hot seat. So
Yeah.
I will, this evening, we're going to do things a little bit differently, but I think this is still, a great format to utilize this. Wendy is going to interview me. So for full disclosure, I don't know any of the specific questions really that she's going to ask. She's going to use her journalistic skills to get to the bottom of this and why I guess I'm newsworthy in so many ways. And I think I am ready for your first question, Wendy.
I won't be grilling you, Sandra, because obviously, I have some sympathies for this situation. It doesn't just affect you. It affects all of us in the media, because I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get to the bottom here of what it is that the police have got against you, because it is extremely unusual, to say the least, if not unprecedented, that a journalist or reporter or anybody that's working in the news media, and yes, you're kind of the queen of the modern social media as well, and maybe they just don't like it, but it bothers me that they are going after you for doing your job. Now, people might not like the way you do your job, or how you do your job, or what you do when you do your job. It doesn't take away from the fact that you are seeking answers to very legitimate questions. And this seems to constantly backfire on you, because still to this day, we had a situation where you were prosecuted by a prosecutor who was supposed to work for the MASH unit and was supposed to be one of their experts in protecting women and children from predators. And yet they chose to prosecute you and not the predator on that occasion. And the Court of Appeal has already told them that they went way, way, way outside of the guardrails of what prosecution should be about. And yet here we are, where they're doing the same thing to you. So what I want to ask you is, Sandra, if you're being charged with harassment, I want to know.
First question out of the box, then. Just repeat it for me.
The first question I'm interested in asking is in relation to the harassment. I want to get to the bottom of how you harassed the person in question. So first of all.
So this is the latest case.
Yeah, this is the latest case, the one in which you're accused of harassing and bullying and being mean to a woman that you had reason to believe was perhaps being part of a misuse of public funds and election laws. It was perfectly, whether it was or it wasn't, that's not the question here. That's, you are now being pursued for your work to find out whether there was wrongdoing going on during the election. So first of all, I want to know, did you follow this woman home?
No. I mean, I don't even know what she looks like, in the sense that I could pass her in the street
and
I would have no idea.
Did you sit outside her home?
Absolutely not.
Come out?
No,
did you go to her place? Not. Did you go to a place of work?
Nope.
Did you sit outside the place of work?
No.
Did you call the woman?
No. I'm trying to. Sometimes I do call people on the show, but I know for sure we never reached her, and I don't think I did with her, because I don't recall anyone sending me her number or anything like that.
So beyond calling her in with the intentions of asking her questions about the allegations.
Yes, and I don't even think that actually happened. I'm trying to
never even got that far. Were you posting mean things about her on social media?
Well, I mean, the definition of mean, if we're talking about the context of, and let's be clear, Wendy, there is a bit of presumption on my part about what this is, because between the police and the DPP's office, they've not given me a proper indictment sheet. Okay. So what that means is what is actually on the indictment doesn't even make any sense, because there's not enough information there. So they haven't said it's for harassing this woman with these episodes or anything. So I am assuming that is what it's about, on the basis that they did call me at some point to say, oh, this woman called and complained about you, we'd like for you to come in. So maybe it's worth showing. And I mean, they had my name misspelled previously on it.
Yes,
and then the police said, oops, we noticed there's some errors. So let's just show
there it is. Yep.
Yeah, let's just show the indictment sheet. In fact, let me just see if I can grab it so it's a bit bigger. So assuming that my assumptions are correct, which maybe there's other people out there complaining that I'm harassing them. In fact, just this week, I got another call from another detective, or PC Myers from West Bay, saying that he got a phone call from someone who claims that, because I did a podcast about him owing people money, that I'm harassing him again. I'm like, are you police for real? I mean, do you not know when to really forward something as a file and as an investigation to the DPP's office? But they seem like they will send anything in. And of course, then the DPP's office is all too happy to pursue it. So sorry, that's the wrong one. I just wanted to do a close up here. Right.
Yeah.
So these are the charges. And like I said, I'm assuming it's Milady Williams, but that is an assumption on my part, because nowhere here is that in the particulars.
And it's also one day, on the 25th day of April. So on one day,
each one is different. So one is the 25th. Each charge is a different day. So on the 1st of May, I must have talked about her, mentioned her name. On the 21st day of April, and then the last charge is on the 11th day of May.
So we're talking on 3 occasions.
Right.
You are alleged to have harassed, alarmed, or distressed this woman.
Right.
All of which you don't know for sure, but you're assuming, I presume, that all of this took place on your show. So
it would have to, because there'd be no other context.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Have you had any contact with this woman in the big wide world outside of trying to call her to answer the question, which is, are you using public funds to assist with a candidate in the election?
Yeah, there was no contact with her whatsoever. Outside, nothing, no, not even a discussion really outside of what I do on my show.
Okay, my next question for you is, you presumably, let's talk about how this works. When we follow stories, it usually comes from something we ourselves may have observed, or more often than not, because we can't be everywhere at once, it is a tip-off, if you like, that somebody has given us. So somebody will call us, send us a WhatsApp or a social media instant message or something saying, you need to look in. Often they're under anonymous account. Sometimes you know who it is. They just ask you not to say who it is. But you'll get a tip that something is untoward somewhere. So you yourself then, it's our job, once we get the tip, it's like a sales lead, like people out there who do sales, they get a lead for somebody who might want to buy something. They phone that person and they start trying to sell whatever. We do the same thing. It's a lead for us, same way. We then begin to follow it up and find out whether there is any substance to an allegation or a query or whatever. So I'm assuming that that's what happened to you. Somebody contacted you, telling you that they believed rules were being broken in terms of the use of public funds and the election laws.
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of what was said, right? So I had actually seen her in McKeeva, believe it or not, at Foster's one day. And I was thinking, well, who on earth is this lady at Foster's driving one of the government Tahoes? And so I had seen them with my own 2 eyes. And then I started to make some queries about, McKeeva has a young lady driving around with him. And it was at that point that I was told, that's his new government assistant, his new PA or whatever she was supposed to be. And I said, really? So when he, under the hybrid administration that Juliana O'Connor-Conley was the premier, he became PS again, as you remember, right? Parliamentary secretary.
But he was a parliamentary secretary, which is a backbencher still. It's not a minister.
Yes. But he still got access to a Tahoe, and he got access to this young lady who was being paid anywhere between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. And it was really, really bizarre, obviously, because there'd been, even at that point, allegations of him driving whilst intoxicated. I mean, we saw the video of him at a local convenience store in West Bay, where he appeared to be urinating on the side of the convenience store, appeared to be wobbly and intoxicated. And after that, they still gave him a government vehicle. So this would have been leading up to the election, where I was talking about his lack of fitness, if you will, for candidacy, why the West Bay constituents should not vote for him. And so we would have talked about a lot of his behavior over the years, his conviction, his assault of a woman, multiple counts, and other allegations that had been made about him over a long, extensive period of time, practically since the entire time he's been involved in politics. So, we talked about everything. And of course, this was one of the key things that came up, was the fact that that particular government gave him access to having this PA who was not a Caymanian. And it's very unusual to have someone in that position actually who isn't a Caymanian, but, running his office, I guess. I don't even know what she was doing, because from what I understood, the only thing people could say for sure that she was doing is that she was driving him around. Then there were allegations that he would have been riding her in another aspect, right? So we talked about these things because this is what is being alleged and what is in the community. Mm-hmm. He visits her house at really late hours in the night, especially once he's had a few drinks, and the neighbors see him coming and going, so they're well aware. So much so that after the first time I talked about this, he went to the neighbors generally in that area and said, "What are you guys looking at? You're back in news to CMR that, I'm here visiting her." It was questionable on a lot of different fronts. So there wasn't so much the question of whether or not she was misappropriating any funds or doing anything in relation to the campaign. Mm-hmm. It was more like, who is this woman? How does she get, as a non-Caymanian, hired? Because, I've actually never seen an MP since we've had single member constituencies where they get to hire people, ministers get like 2 people and whatever. I never see them hire someone who's not entrenched in the community. Absolutely. And who is not a Caymanian, because that's Absolutely. The whole idea, for them to help run their constituency office. So this is
also the whole idea is the political appointments have got to be also about encouraging young Caymanians to get involved in politics. So the idea of employing someone
from Honduras or wherever she's from,
who is not Caymanian and is never going to go into politics, then that's local politics, I should say. Then that's a complete upside down. This is my point that I'm trying to make, is that, like, it seems to me, whether or not it was a storm in a teacup, it wasn't much of a story, whatever. But in the general melee of elections, we know as journalists that these are things that crop up, and you look at them,
Absolutely.
And you make a decision, and you look at is there anything that you can? Are there any threads to pull? And if the threads can be pulled, do they lead to somewhere that's significant and that ought to be in the public domain, or is it just a little? And right away, using politically appointed people that are paid for not by your party or your committee, but by government during the election period is already a crime. So here's an irony yet again, as with the case with Matthew Leslie, who was committing crimes, we believe. You were the one that was charged, and he, still to this day, has never had to answer.
Absolutely.
Multiple allegations that have been made against him for misconduct, sexual misconduct,
and other things.
What concerns me about this case, it may be small fry. It may have been something that was a nothing thing. Do you know what I mean? I might have dismissed it and thought, nah, it's not even worth it. It's just, McKeever up to his shenanigans again or whatever. It's just not worth it. He's not that relevant anymore. Although never say that again. I did say it once before, and then before you know it,
you can never,
So, he's never irrelevant. But we knew in this election he had an uphill battle. But either way, it was very unlikely, even if he got his seat, it was very unlikely to actually be part of a government. So he had become less important. However, I don't think, from what you're saying is you barely addressed the woman, that the issue was that she just happened to be the woman that was involved. So it wasn't that you were saying mean things about her.
I may have, because it might be mean to say that she's in a relationship with McKeever Bush. I'd be insulted if somebody said that about me.
It's an insult if you're not in a relationship. But she is in some kind of relationship, whether it's a sexual one or not. She was working for him and she was helping him do his shopping, so she's in a friendship with him that goes beyond
driving around in a government vehicle.
So there's nothing. So obviously,
so we questioned.
Yeah,
we questioned. We questioned different elements of that. And I mean, the crazy thing about it, Wendy, is at the end of the day, there are lots of MPs and people in public office, even civil servants, who have very, very thin skin.
Yes.
They can't take criticism, right? So I guess, she ran to the police, filed a complaint. They did reach out and said, hey, do you want to come in for an interview? My lawyer at the time, Amelia, was actually off island, and she, I think they reached out to her by email. She said she was away and she would revert to them. They didn't come back, really. And then the next thing I know, they called to say, oh, we have a summons for you. And I said, okay.
So you were
not
just
the
charged.
First time.
You weren't
Here we go
interviewed.
again.
You were just charged.
Yeah, because they claimed that the one time they reached out for an interview, I couldn't make myself available at their convenience. My general observation about this, though, Wendy, is there's something bigger at play here in terms of them trying to control what I do. So a lot of them don't understand it, and they really try to control it. For example, I have been in a police interview where they went online and they Googled, what is a journalist supposed to do? And they're sitting there interrogating me about what, as a journalist, I'm supposed to do from what I'm not supposed to do, and if I know the law of journalism. And I'm like, how is that a police matter?
And
right?
Also,
how is that your job?
Also, the interpretations of what a journalist does depends on what you do. I'm a different type of journalist to you. I don't do talk shows. I just do like basic reporting. I do shoe leather reporting. Yeah. You host a talk show.
Yeah, and that is very different than even what we write.
Work, whether people call you a shock jock or all these podcasts. I mean, the world now is full of podcasters that do what you do.
Yeah,
that talk about shit on the videos and encourage people to call in and comment about how they feel about how their politicians are behaving, what they're doing. And legitimate questions are written. Now, not everybody might like it because it can sometimes be unkind, but it's still all part of the free speech in the public square. This is the public square now happens to be online. And what used to be Speaker's Corner 100 years ago in England, where that was the only place where you could say absolutely anything you wanted in England without there being any ramifications. Like the Speaker's Corner is known for, you can go there and say whatever you like, and there's no defamation, there's no nothing. It's literally a free speech thing. Now the internet has turned into that, and we have to navigate it. And not everybody's going to like your show, of course they're not.
Right.
But you have an awful amount of people that do. An enormous amount of people tune into your show every morning. They listen to what you say. They talk about it over the coffee machine, the water cooler later. It is part and parcel of Cayman's media landscape, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
And it concerns me that if you can be arrested and charged in your case, just arrested and charged without even being interviewed, for asking questions, legitimate questions, in relation to the behavior of a politician and his staff during an election campaign, that worries me. Because, I'm known too for asking saucy questions sometimes. You know what I mean? Not everybody likes the questions I ask.
Yeah.
I've taken it in the neck from politicians. Now, obviously, I'm in a different environment. I'm not posting all over social media about it. I'm just doing my stories. I ask questions of politicians because I have a very specific story in mind. I've been given information about what I believe has occurred, and I am giving the politician involved, when I ask questions, a right to reply.
Yeah.
As the infamous case of our friend Dwayne Seymour.
Yes.
And his personal trainer. And the question needed to be asked.
The wife's personal trainer.
Allegedly. I should not have had to listen to the bullshit that came out of his mouth when I asked that question. You should have just said yes or no.
Yeah.
Or given an explanation.
And he basically, called your intellect into question, tried to insult you. I mean, it's just shocking.
And a veiled threat.
A threat. That's right.
A veiled threat. And to this day, he's never apologized, just so you all know.
Yeah.
Don't need one. I'm fine. Because it's part and parcel of the job. It's not my job to put him at ease or to make him feel better about himself. It is my job on behalf, especially when we were all locked down in the way we were then. It was my job at those press briefings to ask the important questions. And if that involved a politician who might have been breaking the law and doing shit that the rest of us couldn't do, it needed to be asked.
Absolutely. And the thing about this that is so really shocking for me, right? Yeah. I thought that with this Court of Appeal decision in May of last year, the court going into that, and I was, you know that I represented myself up until like the final hearing. And so I did the original submissions to the court. Yeah. And there were a number of grounds. And they said to me, of the grounds that you have, we think grounds number, let's just say, 1, 6, 5, and 7 have merit. And those were all about the fact that the judge actually got it wrong. And they said to me, even at this preliminary stage, we believe the judge got it wrong. Yeah. And we now recognize that, we have to set down, this is pretty much almost verbatim what they said. We now recognize that we have got to set down the law as it relates to freedom of speech in your Constitution, in your Bill of Rights. So they said, Ms. Sandra, apologies that we're kind of talking around you, because they had actually summoned the legal aid director to court, which had never happened before. And they essentially said to her, you need to grant, this is a human rights issue, constitutional issue. So we need you to figure out the whole legal aid component. She needs legal aid because this is more than about her. This is about setting down the tests for freedom of speech in your jurisdictions per the Constitution and just common law principles. And so it was at that moment, Wendy, that I obviously understood how important that appeal was in the Matthew Leslie case, right? Yeah. And it's so funny because at one stage, I was actually considering abandoning the appeal, although I had gotten permission from the Court of Appeal to do it. I was in a different space. It had been a number of years now had passed. He's never come back to the jurisdiction, CMR, doing great things, really elevating, and mentally I wasn't even there anymore. Right. But I'll tell you what happened one day that made me realize the importance of setting the record straight. So, we get into these tit for tats, not you necessarily, but I do all the time with people on WhatsApp and social media. And Sherry Ann Smith has a group, and in her group, her and both of them are my cousins, funny enough. Cousin Sherry Ann and cousin Frank were having a go at me, and they said, "Oh, well, don't forget she's a criminal." This is Frank Macfield now. Don't forget she has a conviction. And when I saw somebody screenshot it and sent it to me, when I saw that, I said, you know what? I can't even argue with that because they're right. I do have a conviction for harassment, as the judge went all out and said, right? Justice Chappell. And I said, I was going to not do this, but thanks to the two of them, so I want to thank the two of them, I decided, no, I've got to see this through, and I have to challenge it because there was too much about what he said, including the fact that the truth didn't matter. Yes, I think you and I had arguments.
Horrified me.
Way before, we even got a judgment. When I was telling you what was happening in court, I think I mentioned this to you. You're like, how can the truth not matter? Yeah. He was shooting down my lawyer left, right, and center because his position was whether what you said or not, it's not a defamation case. The truth doesn't matter. It could be the truth and you could still. And I was like, that just doesn't, I have a law degree. I'm not a lawyer, but even from a common sense perspective, there was something about that just didn't sit right with me.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, when you said that in court, I dropped my pencil. I was like, it was beyond belief because even though, yes, of course, it wasn't a defamation case, but the point was you were a journalist, actor, or a podcaster, or whatever people want to do.
Whatever, yeah.
You were producing a expose about a man whom there had been persistent complaints about since my little feet landed on this island. I've been hearing it.
And so many people know these complaints, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like it was, it was one of Cayman's best not kept secrets. So it was like, that the whole idea that you were doing an expose on somebody that the police had decided to completely ignore and not do anything about, that you were doing it, and that therefore the truth of that didn't matter, that you had the audacity to raise it. It's part of your job. It's what you do for a living. And I mean, obviously, you can't just make something up about somebody.
Exactly.
Even then, it doesn't need to be a criminal case, even if you had made it all up, because we have really strong defamation laws here.
Yes.
This isn't America. You can challenge free speech all the time in the courts here, and it's we ourselves have been through it too, and we're really careful about how we navigate what we say and what we print on CNS. I verify and check things 10 times over. I do a lot of checking before anything goes out. So the idea that there isn't an alternative, if Matthew Leslie really, but the thing is, then he would have had to prove the truth.
Yes,
because that's the point.
That's right.
If he'd
that's it.
If he'd have made the complaint civilly, the truth would have mattered, and he wouldn't have stood a chance, and you would have won. You would have been able to claim all your money from him, the damages, and run the show, and there'd have been no. So how the DPP's office got involved in that is beyond me, and I'm still struggling with it. So what my question to you now is, why is it you think that even after all of that happened, and the fact that the Court of Appeal has torn them all a new arsehole over it, that they're coming at you with exactly the same thing?
Almost the exact same case, just that one was Section 90 of the ICT legislation. This one is Section 88 of the Penal Code, but they're almost verbatim.
It's a misuse of the Criminal Procedure Code without any doubt in my mind. You were doing your job. They might not like it. The people who you were doing your job about might not like it. People don't like it. They're like, seriously, I feel that the people at the DVDL have spent the last 3 weeks hiding under the desk every time I call that office. And people don't want to talk to you about certain things. And that's the way it goes. And I expect it. It's part and parcel of the job. Used car salesmen, lawyers, journalists, everybody hates us. It's just part and parcel.
Let me say this, right? I think there's a couple things going on here. I think number one, most of these cases that I've had with the DPP, going all the way back to the original case, which was a dog theft case, I would say 99% of them have been civil cases. And the courts have said as much.
Without doubt.
And unfortunately, what I have found here is the police entertain. It's so ironic because when there are criminal cases, they seem hesitant to pursue and say, no, that's a civil. But when it's a civil case with me in particular, they're all too happy to try to criminalize it. And that is true of the current charges, the Matthew Leslie one, the dog theft. There was one for property damage when I was in Centennial Towers. The Chief Justice, Margaret Ramsey at the time, Chief Magistrate at the time, she threw that out. She said, this is a civil case. What are you doing here trying to criminalize this? It has happened too many times. And I think that there's some sort of axe to grind with me and it starts with the dog theft case, where every single time they lose a case, I make a big public to-do about it. It's covered all over the news. I remember even with the dog case, what was that publication that the Compass had, the Journal or something? Remember they used to look at insert publication?
The big broadsheet thing, the business thing.
But they even did a whole article on the whole dog theft case saying, this raises a lot of questions that no one had ever thought about before. When you find and rescue a dog with all good intentions, you can actually now end up in court because they were trying to set that type of precedent. You could end up in court defending yourself supposedly against stealing a dog.
Yes, because you thought you'd rescued a dog that was in danger. And I mean, that's the thing. One of the big things about anything criminal, what leads to a charge in the end, and this is as we're talking about court matters, it's an element that it's important, is intent or the mens rea of a
exactly.
Case. It's very important that you establish that somebody intended to do something criminal, because it is possible to make a mistake and venture onto the wrong side of the law accidentally.
But if there's no intent there.
Cases, if there's no intent, they don't really charge people. They try and work out what's gone wrong, put things right, and then everybody goes home. This idea that from that day forth, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that in the first instance, when the police came to your door, you didn't shiver and quiver and say, oh, what did I do? I'm so sorry, all that. You said,
no, I stood my ground.
Where in the animal law is what you're suggesting written down? Because I'd like to see it.
Yes. And because I continually stand my ground with them, they continually have a point to prove.
I also think
it's become this tit for tat.
Yes, you piss them off with the child, the campaigning for the child register, the open child register. You piss them off every single time you named a perpetrator of sex offenders, things like that. You piss them off over the search warrants that
yes, I won that illegal case. Yeah,
you pissed them off over the
even with the gun case. Remember the gun case with the Ducharme guy, right?
Yeah.
By the way, did you know he was recently involved in an accident where a young Caymanian driver injured her arm and broke it like in 3-4 different places? That's a whole other story. But anyway, allegedly somebody was drinking under the influence. But anyway, we'll see what becomes of that, because the police won't pursue that, I'm sure. You know what I mean? The ones that they should pursue, they're not going to pursue. But that was a legitimate article. He lawyered up because I couldn't
possibly comment. Yeah.
he had lots of money. And, you know, all the questions that I was asking in my article, which, by the way, when I sent to the police, they refused to answer. You turned around and sent those exact same questions to the police, and they answered them for you. Mm-hmm. So there's been a long history of contention with me and the RCIPS. Mm-hmm. They accidentally, one time, their PR person, the one who ended up suing them and then leaving, I guess, when she got her payout, she accidentally sent me an email saying, oh, just ignore her. She meant to send it to the police commissioner, but sent it to me instead, one of the former police commissioners. And so it was obvious that there was contention there. And when I started down this track of being in media, right, it didn't necessarily get any better. In fact, I even lodged an official complaint with the Ombudsman's office against them. And the Ombudsman's office said, you can't ignore her questions. You need to have a procedure for how to deal with all media. She's media, whether you like it or not. And so when she sends through questions, you can't respond to the commissioner or just ignore her and don't answer her questions. Because as soon as I got that email, I said, I caught you. And I also knew that you answered Wendy's questions, which were the same bloody questions that I was asking about. Where's the gun? How did this happen? Why wasn't he charged? Mm-hmm. You know, all of these sorts of things, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. It has been the relationship with the police. The DPP is an extension, really, of them. Remember the one with the Nation Building Fund, right? Yes. That's a significant case for a couple reasons. Because a sitting MP was the complainant. Listen to this carefully. A sitting MP through the ministry was the one who actually complained and brought this to a criminal prosecution. This was all about politics. And years later, you know, I had the opportunity to speak to someone who was a member at the time of caucus. And of course, what's his name? Winston Conley was a PS, a parliamentary secretary under education with Tara Rivers. And they later said to me, when I started talking about my history of cases, you know, they said that the interesting thing is, I remember him coming in to caucus very jubilant about, oh my God, we got her now, we got her now. And that's what a large part of this is about. They want to get something, anything, it doesn't matter, on me. Oh, we got her now, right? And they pursued a case that, again, had zero merit. It was a contractual, at best, once again, a civil dispute, a contractual dispute. They sat there and tried to argue for an offense that in the end wasn't even an offense. And the judge had to instruct the jurors to throw it out.
What I would like to say, as somebody who covered the Nation Building Fund extensively and looked at all of those awards and everything that went on.
Yeah.
It is ironic that you were the only person.
The only one.
To be charged. And there was obviously horrific, okay, I can't say it because I can't prove it, but alleged horrific
abuses
and abuses circulating around that money. First of all, how that money was established. Second of all, how the choices were made, because there was no checks and balances and how it was distributed. Yes. And the fact that it went to so many churches where so many members of government were parts of the congregation. And in the end, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, some of the churches gave the money back because they felt it was so tainted. Because the whole thing
only after you highlighted it. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt so dirty, all of it. So the fact that you, out of all of them, and to be fair, you did actually give people a course. It was actually, people did actually go to school and do whether they liked it or not.
Let's be clear. I actually had a contract in place, unlike some of these other people that claimed they were getting it for, this one needs a scholarship and their parents could afford to pay for it. I remember you're reporting on it. There were students who were failing, so there was no expectation of grades or whatever. And then they try to get me
scholarship for $75,000 at a time when the scholarships were at best 20,000, I think.
Yeah,
We got
it was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And you know, we actually had at one point in a civil case, we actually had at one point the secretary to then Premier McKeever Bush get on the stand and said that that I never came to government building to sign a contract, and that I never had a contract. I couldn't put my hand on the contract at the time, right? So she said that there was a never signing, that there was never a contract in place, none of that. And I was able to get the log book because, like I said, at the time I said, Your Honor, nobody gets into the government building without signing in. So we backdated because I had it in my diary that I had gone there to meet with him, had other eyewitnesses and stuff. So we backdated, got the log from government showing I was there on that day. And what it said on the log, I was there to do. And then she said, I go, oh, well, I guess if the book says she was there, but I never saw her. And I don't move from my desk. She was so adamant that she doesn't move from her desk. She's there all the time. She never goes to the bathroom. She never takes a lunch break. Had I come, she would have seen me. So a lot of it comes down to personality. I'm not going to back down. If I know something is the truth and I was there and I signed that contract, I'm going to stand by that. I'm not going to cowtail Wendy and go hide in the corner and pretend like I've done something wrong when I haven't done anything wrong. You know, like when they came to me with their search warrant and they're digging up all in my house, I was like, wait a minute, how do you get a search warrant to come to me under these circumstances? And I start digging into the search warrant, and lo and behold, I find a little man, when I go to court and sue them, I find this little man has signed thousands of search warrants over umpteenth years, and he had never once questioned. Ironically, it was Justice Henderson, right? After he had won his case against them for the same thing. Like I built my case on his case. Yeah. And the question, you know, the DPP, he had told them to abandon it. They wouldn't listen to him. You see, these are the details that's really important because it demonstrates how hard up they are for me. If you have a sitting judge say to you months before, are you sure you have a case to answer here? That is your cue that you don't have a case. At the earliest, like, you know, they're talking about the prima facie, you don't even have that. That is essentially what he's trying to tip you off. He said, go back and review this because are you sure you have a case to answer? They took 5 or 6 months later to come back, trying to delay it and use my lack of understanding of the procedural part of things. Had I not spoke up and said, no, I'm not going to delay this because she has an election to go and run. Didn't she know that a year ago? Like, that's not my concern. I want this dealt with, right? And the judge ended up saying, she's absolutely right. We're going to keep the original date. When we get there, she starts asking, you know, the poor gentleman questions about, you know, search warrant, the language in it. It was clear that he didn't understand any of it. And he said to her, are you sure this line of questioning is actually useful to your case? Because basically, she was proving that the JP was incompetent when it comes to search warrants. And yet the police were using him. Mm-hmm. They were forum shopping and using him because they knew he would never ask a single question. So they're
still doing it. They're still doing the same thing. They did it with the Doctors Express.
Yeah, well, finally, because of my case, they started to do JP training, right? But yeah, it's, you know, when I stood up and I said,
but JP, even after JP training, what was that like? Sitting in the classroom for an afternoon? Come on, man. And like, even after that, they still don't know. Like, if a police officer,
it's illegal. It should only have magistrates, judges, and someone legally trained, in my opinion.
Well, you know what? The fact that they would come to you, someone like you. I mean, now anybody that comes with a search warrant to your house that isn't signed by a judge, they're out of their goddamn mind.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put it past them. Trust me, because you know, I would not put it past them. So yeah, I mean, I said to him, I said, Mr. Ebanks, how many search warrants do you think that you've signed over the past like 20, 30 years or whatever it was? Oh, probably thousands. They come to me all the time, he says. I said, really? And I said, have you ever refused to sign a search warrant? He said, no, ma'am. I said, okay. I said, have you ever questioned them about a search warrant? About why they were requesting it and anything? No, ma'am. Never? In 30 years, you've never questioned the police about a search warrant? No. I just sign it because the police must be right. They must know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's such a.
I actually felt really bad for him because he just didn't have the requisite knowledge.
Yeah, but a lot of people have that belief system that if an officer is coming to you, I mean, God,
then they're in the right.
They must be in the right. But we all have had it. I mean, surely in the
police are not always right. They do a lot of things wrong.
With their own eyes, from America to through the UK to here, that wearing
police abuses
does not make you a decent human being.
Yeah,
simply doesn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the other thing. Even in relation to that case, right? The way in which they arrested me at work, 8 or 9 senior detectives, even Justice Henderson commented. He said, "Why was there this amount of police presence for one woman? She's not a murderer. This is not a gun charge. This is not a gang banging charge." Like he questioned it in court.
Basically.
Yeah, he was like the degree of force that you guys went after her because of text message between her and somebody that she had been dating and whatever. He said the force does not meet the allegations of the offense. This is crazy. And so there's so many elements, Wendy, like when I pick out the details, because the details do matter.
They do.
They really demonstrate that there has been this historical, we're going to get her at any cost. And I think that continues to this day. And I know that we'll get to what I intend to do about it this time around, because I think I have to stop them. Yeah, and the only way for me to stop them.
Given the long history that you've gone through and the amount, and this is my concern about it. The details of this particular case are kind of incidental. It doesn't really matter. The point is they are the same. It's the same petty, not a real crime anyway. And taken out of context, so you double it. So it becomes like every single one, when you drill down and look at them, all of them were not real crimes, taken out of context. You were the only person in a circumstances where there were lots of others, and it's a repeated behavior that is challenging a member of the media. Their definition of, just because you don't fit what their perceived definition of a journalist it was 20 years ago, it doesn't mean to say that they have the right to come after you because they don't like how you're conducting your business. Yeah.
And so this is a little cheat sheet that I put together. And keep in mind that there have been times when they have abandoned certain cases. So this isn't even all of the times. This is all the times that they actually
managed to get something to the courtroom. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Dog theft, property damage, ICT offenses, Nation Building Fund, use of ICT to annoy, uttering of false documents, misuse of ICT again, blackmail, attempting to structure. That's the one with John Felder. Again, related to my job of reporting, right? Yes. And then dealing with the civil case.
How can you harass an alarm as subject of a goddamn story? This is what's doing my head in. It's like, what? So I have to be careful now that I don't upset somebody when I phone them up to ask them a question about what they may or may not have been doing that could be or may not. I mean, this is the thing. When I make a phone call to somebody with regards to a story, or you send a message or you send out an email or whatever. In fact, I've taken to emailing and messaging a lot more these days so that I have that documented proof that I asked a decent, straightforward, perfectly legitimate question, because otherwise people will twist it. So if you don't have it on the, I mean, there are some people that are just implicitly in, so don't mind still talking on the phone. But a lot of people I will email these questions simply to ensure that I've covered my back. But you can't, of course they're going to be upset if I'm asked, if they haven't done anything. I've heard something that says that they have, and I go and ask them, and it sounds far worse than what they actually really did. Of course they're going to be upset. Yeah. But that's the whole point of the right to reply. You know, I give everyone the right to reply. I send everyone questions. No story goes out on CNS without me having at first contacted anybody that's affected by it in the story. And so you constantly need to navigate that situation. But it means that you're asking them direct questions. Did you embezzle those funds or didn't you? You know, did you misappropriate? Did you make that contract, give that contract to your friend or didn't you? Did you take that topsoil? Yeah. And put it from the affordable housing justice side? Or did you?
So let's talk about some of what's actually
did you buy the wrong size toilets?
The fixtures, yeah, right. So let's talk about the case, Wendy, because like it or not, this is a landmark case. The judges said it themselves.
This is the you mean your appeal case?
Yes. So the judges said it themselves. If no one has read it, it's only 14 pages. It's not a long read.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in our profession needs to read it, and I think anybody who's engaged with and is interested in how, especially in the modern world where the news is changing and how we do news is changing enormously.
Absolutely.
People need to read this document to understand that free speech, it's not absolute. It isn't absolute, but it's pretty damn broad. And yes, we're not calling fire in a cinema, but we have to. The most fundamental. What's the most fundamental part of our job is asking questions.
Absolutely.
It's the basic. So to now be, to feel that because we ask a question, we could be prosecuted. It's insane. This is not Iran. Last time I looked.
Yeah.
The Islamic Republic.
So, so I mean, if we look at what the judges, how they analyze what was happening here. In the end, remember, before we even got to this decision, the DPP fell on their sword. Yes. They said, as soon as they got the legal arguments from Mr. Fitzgerald, who's representing me, they said, oops, we don't have a case to answer. They sent that email almost right away. Yeah. And so they basically paid a KC to show up and do what only God knows, right? They had to bring in a KC from overseas to say, oh yeah, we've fallen on our sword. That's because we currently have, and it's worth saying, we currently have a Director of Public Prosecutions who is not capable of litigating. He has never once stood in the court. Well, here we go. So there are a number of things.
Enormous amounts of money to defend a case against you that they knew that they were going to lose, which he should never have sanctioned in the first place.
Yep.
And why is he not being arrested for misusing public funds? That's a good question you can ask. That'll get you. That'll get you arrested. Go and ask that question. Call them up. Ask that
question. Couple key things. Number one, freedom of expression was clearly engaged. So the court held, again, this is the Court of Appeal, that the podcast activity fell squarely within the scope of protected expression. There was no suggestion of violence, incitement to violence, or conduct rejecting democratic values. Section 11 of the Bill of Rights was engaged from the onset and required full constitutional analysis. Number two, the trial judge applied the wrong legal framework, which is what we were saying from the trial, right?
Yeah.
So the Grand Court Judge, Justice Chappell, the court agreed, got it wrong, and that he focused primarily on the complainant's feelings, reputation, and sensibilities, rather than starting from the constitutional importance of free expression in a democratic society. So the court held that that approach was legally flawed, and that judges must begin by giving great weight to free speech and tolerance of robust expression, especially where public interest issues are involved. Yeah. And there was never any doubt about that. The third key point is that Section 90 of the ICT Act does not automatically satisfy proportionality. And the court rejected the idea that by simply proving the statutory requirements of Section 90 of the Act, that automatically made a conviction compatible with freedom of speech. The offense is drafted broadly, they said, in terms of Section 90, and does not itself strike the necessary balance between speech rights and criminality, and therefore a separate proportionality assessment was required in each case.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they also found that truth is highly relevant to proportionality. So again, he was dismissive. They said the trial judge excluded evidence related to the truth of the allegations made in the podcast, and the Court of Appeal held that that was wrong. Whether speech is true or not is plainly highly relevant when assessing whether criminalizing that speech is proportionate.
Yes, because that's the point. If you're going to criminalize a journalist for asking questions, then the truth that they are trying to get at by asking those questions is absolutely fundamental. If they just made it up and then they were just asking you random questions on a based up thing, they're not. Again, the truth would be
the position would be very.
Made it up, and she was asking me dumbass questions because it was made up. And if you could prove that it was made up, equally the same. But you could prove that there were, if not absolutely convincing evidence, that
there were sufficient complaints for sure.
There were sufficient complaints from so many different women under different circumstances that had gone on for years that was perfectly legitimate for you to ask those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a significant difference between criminalizing potentially true allegations as opposed to criminalizing false allegations.
Absolutely, there is.
Now, this next bit was interesting, Wendy.
Because I wanted to ask you, because we haven't got that much time left, Sandra, and I think it's important that we discuss. At the end of the day, I'm pretty confident that this case is going to be thrown out, or it's going to end in a not guilty verdict, whichever way it happens to fall. But this has got to stop, because if it doesn't, if they are allowed to prosecute you in this way with no other consequences other than the fact that it will end in a not guilty or a thrown out, they've got to be stopped, because it's beginning to worry me that the way that they're doing this, it is, yes, it appears to be personal about you today, but when would it be personal against anyone else in the media? And it's very easy to tip over like into an area where the police start to feel uncomfortable because you're asking too many questions or you're raising too many issues about their conduct and everything. Because, you know, we don't necessarily listen. There are an awful lot of great cops in the RCIPS, of course there are, but there's also a bunch of useless tools in there as well. And I've experienced it myself, you know, in circumstances where I was pulled over for using a mobile phone when I had a hands-free device. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of, like, you know, and it's like I fought the law and I did.
Oh, there we go. But it just we had a little glitch there.
You go through the experience of that. It's shocking when you see them lie on a statement, because I'm like, hold on a minute, this was just a goddamn traffic stop. And the thing is, it was obvious that I had a hands-free. I said that in the beginning, but I took advice that was sort of in my head at the time that told me, don't try and fight the situation that you're in. It is better to just accept a ticket without accepting liability and then go to court and argue your case. So I did that. I just accepted it, and I just said, okay, fine. I appreciate you believe that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I know you're doing your job. Fine. I'll take the ticket and I will deal with it. You know? And yes, I did, because it was nothing. It was $100 fine. And I mean, it's like, you know, the whole thing. Why is Wendy Ledger in court? Because I remember even you brought it up, I think, on one of your shows. Why is Wendy Ledger in court for using her mobile phone? Because the police
I don't remember, but
didn't understand what a hands-free device was. That's all. That's why. So, you know, it's because it's like, you could see it. Here's the phone attached to the hands-free device. Anyway.
Yeah. So what was your question?
My final question to you is exactly what are you going to do?
Right.
Because I know you can't do anything whilst the case is ongoing, but once it's over,
yes.
What are your plans?
So I think that, you know, I've done quite a bit of research for years now on the possibility of suing the police for malicious prosecution. And it is a very, very high bar for obvious reasons, right? But I think that honestly, when you're looking at 10 different cases now, and I know the details of each case. I know how flawed they were. The vast majority of those were thrown out at the no case submission stage. When you even think about that, like they've not met the minimum bar to proceed to me having to put on a defense, that speaks volumes here. And so collectively, not necessarily any singular case, but I think collectively we have got a record of abuses, whether it's the police, the DPP's office. I don't care who's going to share it, because I'm suing the government, the Cayman Islands government. And I think that I have to file a civil court. I've got to sue all of the interested parties so that we can stop
I think you should. And I think you will be doing it in a way for all of us. Because if you don't, at what point will it's very easy. I think we're watching in America how easy it is for freedoms and democracies to slip. And you know, the Cayman Islands has always been, you know, a little bit kind of an outlier because it's a very interesting democracy that's actually a colony. So, you know, we have a barrier to our democracy in any event. And obviously we follow British rules, which are a lot less flexible when it comes to freedom of speech than the US is. But we are a little democratic nation, and you know, politicians here are very proud of that democracy. And I noticed actually in the Matthew Leslie case and the appeal and everything that you did get quite a bit of support from some of the MPs about that abuse. A couple of them raised it in Parliament, and when politicians, who are usually the butt of most of our work, are standing up in court defending you, that's when I think you know that there's something really, really wrong in terms of why it is that you're being singled out all the time. And they can do it to you, they can do it to any of us.
Yeah. And in the final analysis, one thing that I wanted to say that the court also made sure that they really distinguished is the fact that journalism and non-traditional media are protected. So it doesn't make a difference, right? The court rejected the suggestion because even on cross-examination, when I took the stand, they were putting me to the test. Well, when did you get your business license? And what makes you a journalist? And what training have you had? The court said, no. They said this protection of freedom of expression applies to professional journalists as well as citizens, content creators, independent media actors who publish in public interest. That all of that is important. And that should have been given importance in the contextual failure in the original trial. And it was not. They were putting me on trial about the legitimacy of my platform. And it was so interesting because at the sentencing phase, when I fired my lawyer and I took control of it, even the judge had to kind of back down a bit and admit that, apparently your platform does a lot in the community. I've never seen a case that had 75 reference letters from people from all walks of life who talked about how amazing this platform is. Irony, some of them, of course, were MPs, right? Who also gave references and stuff, right? But they're not, because they give me a reference in a criminal case doesn't mean that they'll never, some of them have gone after Chris Saunders harder than anybody else. Because if your behavior doesn't align, you don't get a free pass no matter what. Even if you got up in court and told the court how wonderful you thought the platform was.
That's the whole point.
It's wonderful because it's based on a foundation of exactly. And it's based on a foundation of truth and accountability.
Yeah. We're supposed to hold people of power, hold truth, power to account. I mean, it's not. This isn't like it's not a game that we're playing. It's like not everybody. People go to work and have jobs, so they depend on people like you and me who do it in different ways. But that's the point. That's the whole point about the one thing that I do like about the modern media landscape is that there is room for all of us. And that's the thing. And you can pick and choose now what you, the journalists that you follow, or the people like, I'm sure you have your favorite journalists that you read. I'm sure you have your favorite podcasters, favorite news shows, things like that. We all do. And it's a great environment. You can pick and choose what you want to listen to. But the point is, we do it because regular Joes in the street don't have time to check what their politicians are doing. They don't have time to watch the parliament all day long, 24 hours around the clock. They don't have time to do that shit. They need us to do it. Hold the people
be their eyes and ears,
and then tell people what's going on. This is what we believe. We found out. We can't prove everything, but because this is the other thing as well, we can raise issues that the police can't because there isn't evidence of a crime. We can raise skullduggery. We don't need a crime. We can say there's this
scammers. I mean, I help people, collect. I was saying that this morning. I help people collect money that otherwise they would not have gotten back from people. One guy said, Miss Sandy, you're my only option before I get violent. And we never want a society that has to resort to violence to resolve money issues or disputes or whatever. Bring it to, if we want to do it in a public, kind of public courtroom, if you will, where it's on the podcast, it's on the show, then so be it. But it's just really, really shocking. I think that since I've had this platform, this is actually going to be year number 9. The powers that be, and that includes a lot of politicians as well, want to figure out how to control it, how to control the narrative, right? Yeah. They've gone as far as, if we get elected back, we're going to write specific legislation addressed to, try to control media. They've suggested, you guys need a media organization to hold each other accountable. So that if you're publishing something and the Compass doesn't like it, or Wendy doesn't like it, they're going to pressure you to not publish it. There've just been so many ways that they've been trying to get creative with trying to control the landscape. And, the judges attempted to lay down the foundation for what that landscape should look like in a free society, a free and supposedly democratic society. And to think that we have people, the head of the DPP, who I understand signs off on every single charge now, to know that he actually signed off on this latest set of charges with that case, that he was just sitting there in front of the judge, it is
mind-boggling. He was there being humiliated. Absolutely. But there is, I think that's another two things. It's like that issue of your show has often highlighted cases that eventually became criminal cases that they had ignored.
Yes.
You know, the guy with the shutters, like the hurricane.
Yep.
Shutters
and Judith Douglas, she would have never been arrested if it wasn't for CMR.
Yeah.
The pedophile case with the guy with all the child porn.
Yeah.
Remember how he appealed it, and we were the ones who, unfortunately, the evidence came to us, and we actually helped the police. The two gay guys getting assaulted. We gave them the video. It's just crazy.
It's not unusual for the press to be in that situation. It happens sometimes. We come across crime that the police don't, because to be honest with you, quite often we're more down than dirty with the people, if you like. We're there, we're living in our environment.
And they trust us, and they don't necessarily trust the police
more than the police, or people talk in a way to us that they wouldn't talk to the police, because we're not police.
Exactly.
And so we find things out, and therefore we can investigate things in a different kind of way. And I think that has pissed them off as well. I think it's a catalogue of things for you that you just constant, and as you say, there's a lot of naivety in the RCIPS about modern media. And about, you can't control it because they have their ridiculous rules. Because I think you've also experienced that, where they send out, their codes of conduct for how they deal with the media. Well, that's fine. You can have your codes of conduct and you could do that. I'm still going to ask you questions. I'm still going to ask the commissioner questions. I'm still going to go and approach officers and ask them questions. There's no law that says I can't do it. Just because you say, well, the only people that are going to speak to you are the media people. Well, yeah, sure, fine. The day-to-day stuff, that's great. I know who I need to contact. But if there's a crime scene, I'm still going to ask the cops at the crime scene. If I see a police officer in the street that I know is involved in a case, I'm going to ask him about it. He doesn't have to answer me. He can tell me to go, But you can't tell me how to do my job. I'm not telling you how to do yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I
think,
here
we are.
We're going to have to have another session on this. We'll have another show.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this year, hopefully the blackmail case is going to be happening in February. So that'll be one to keep an eye out for. And my first appearance for the new charges is in February, I think late February as well. So, as always, Wendy, I'm always very, very transparent. Like literally the second I get handcuffed, arrested, whatever, search warrant, I'm the one posting it online. Look at me, I'm in handcuffs. Because I do live in this space where I'm exposing other people. So I don't feel like things like that I should be hiding from anyone. So I make it very, very
important that we talk about this case. I don't think any of that, they're going to want to keep the lid on it. Of course they are. But no, I'm very keen to talk about this case at all times, because it affects our sector. It's our industry. And it's a broader industry. And we've got a lot of new colleagues are coming up on social media. The guys that are doing everything 345 and fully 345. They're also out there now doing these things and recording and catching crime on camera. And also,
and they're and a lot of them don't. And a lot of them don't have the training and experience that we do. They're much younger. They're afraid. When I say experience, I mean just life experience. So when the police roll up on them that they stole a dog or anything else, you must take that down, they're more likely to concede.
Stolen property on your lap there.
No, this is Zeus. But I mean, I've even seen, for example, one of our colleagues, I'm not going to call his name, but he has a publication, and sometimes he's been asked to remove stuff or, to not put the defendant's name and stuff after conviction. And I keep saying to him, why do you keep acquiescing to this? You're too easy, because they would never approach me about something like that, because it simply isn't going to be done. And so I think there is a fraternity of us in this media space that we have to stick together. We have to advise, our younger colleagues and the new guys.
The younger kids on social media. I don't think everybody's coming after me. I'm too long in the tooth, and
they ain't coming. The thing about them is they go after. They go after them. Yeah, they go after them, but not in the way that they're going to take them to court, because they just give up. before it even becomes publicly known, they're taking it down, you know, and so on. And so I think that somebody's got to be willing to fight. And I'm at this stage. I'm like, listen, we're already 10 cases in. What am I going to do? Give in to the police? Absolutely not.
No.
I'm going to just keep fighting.
Yeah, good. Rock and roll.
So that's where we're at. And little Zeus, he wanted to jump up here so he could literally fall asleep in my arms. He's like the laziest, cutest little dog ever. But yeah, Wendy, you know, we have a lot to lose when it comes to freedom of expression and freedom of speech in this country. And I, for one, am going to, you know, fight tooth and nails to protect it, not just for myself, but for everyone in this country.
Good.
And so that's it. Any other burning questions for me at this point?
No, at this point, we'll come back to this. And what a way to kick off the new year. And we'll get back on track with more specific court matters next week.
Yes, sounds fantastic. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Court Matters, a weekly show being brought to you by CMR TV. And I want to thank everyone who's been supporting CMR TV. Wendy, we've had such an amazing, I don't know how much you've been paying attention to, but we've had such amazing response from the community. We have tons of original shows and content that people are tuned into every single day of the week.
Yeah, it's great.
And yeah, it's really, really taken off. And this particular show, Court Matters, is certainly no exception to that. Lots of people love the program and they've been reaching out with positive comments.
Great. Good to hear. And keep up with the good work, Sandra.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. We'll see you guys